They feared the alien girl long before they ever spoke to her. But 3 days later, when darkness swallowed an entire school, the people who avoided her would learn who had truly been alone all along. The emergency lights pulsed red across Harmony Integration Academy, casting long shadows over polished floors and silent hallways built to welcome students from Earth and 12 allied worlds. The warning tone echoed through the campus once every 6 seconds. Teachers moved quickly. Security drones floated past classroom doors. Students whispered names to each other with nervous voices. One name rose above the others. Lyra Vane. Find Lyra. Somewhere inside the massive academy station orbiting above Earth, people searched for the quiet alien girl they once pretended not to see. Principal Helen Mercer stood near the central operations room with tension written across her face. The school systems had failed without warning. Communication panels flickered. Climate controls stalled. Backup energy reserves were fading faster than they should. For the first time since Harmony Integration Academy opened 18 years earlier, fear touched every corner of the building. Yet none of that explained why teachers who once avoided a 13-year-old student were suddenly saying her name like it mattered. Daniel Brooks pushed his cleaning cart slowly down the west hallway as warning lights reflected against polished metal walls. At 56 years old, Daniel had worked inside Harmony Integration Academy for almost 9 years. Most people barely noticed him. Students rushed past him. Teachers nodded politely without remembering his name. Parents visiting campus sometimes mistook him for maintenance equipment standing beside his cart. Daniel never minded. Floors still needed cleaning. Burned-out lights still needed replacing. Someone always had to stay after everyone else left. He stopped near the science wing. Something felt wrong. Not because of the alarms. Because of the silence. Harmony Integration Academy never felt quiet. Not completely. But tonight felt different. Empty. Heavy. Daniel looked toward a dark hallway near the student residential wing. One section remained. Darker than the others. A place he knew well. 3 days earlier, before emergency lights and warning signals and frightened voices searching empty hallways, Daniel Brooks had noticed something no one else noticed. Room 2147. Lyra Vane's room. The lights outside her door stayed off almost every night. At first he assumed maintenance missed something. A broken panel maybe. A damaged sensor. But then he noticed something stranger. The lights worked perfectly fine. Someone turned them off. Every night. Daniel adjusted his glasses and stared down the empty hallway as warning lights pulsed slowly across steel walls. 3 days earlier, he walked toward room 2147 carrying nothing more than a replacement cleaning filter and a tired back after 10 hours of work. He thought he would finish one last task before heading home. Instead, he found something waiting quietly in the darkness. A girl sitting completely alone where no one else wanted to be. Daniel stood still for several seconds without speaking. The hallway lights behind him glowed softly against steel walls, but room 2147 remained wrapped in shadows. Harmony Integration Academy floated 200 miles above Earth, built with glass corridors, advanced systems, and promises about unity across worlds. Yet somehow one 13-year-old girl still found herself sitting alone in darkness. Lyra Vane sat on the floor beside her doorway with her knees drawn close to her chest. A small tablet screen rested beside her, dark and inactive. She wore the standard academy uniform like everyone else, though hers always seemed slightly too large, like she wanted to disappear inside it. Her silver-gray skin reflected faint traces of distant hallway light. Dark blue markings curved gently across her hands and neck. Natural patterns from her home world that students whispered about when they thought teachers could not hear. Daniel had heard those whispers before. Dangerous. Strange. Different. The words changed depending on who spoke them. The meaning never changed. Daniel leaned lightly against his cleaning cart. "You waiting for maintenance?" he asked quietly. Lyra looked up fast. For a second something flashed across her face. Surprise. Maybe worry. Then it disappeared. "No," she said softly. Daniel nodded once. "Power issue." "No." "Light sensor broken?" "No." Silence settled between them. Somewhere far down the residential corridor, air circulation systems hummed softly. Daniel noticed something strange. Room 2147 had power. The door panel glowed faint blue. Climate systems worked normally. Nothing was broken. He glanced toward the light controls mounted beside the entrance. Off position. Deliberately off. Daniel looked back toward Lyra. "You like sitting in the dark?" he asked carefully. She lowered her eyes toward the floor. It is easier. Daniel waited. Years working inside schools taught him something important. Silence mattered. People filled silence when they felt safe enough. After several quiet seconds, Lyra finally spoke again. People leave faster. Daniel felt something tighten quietly inside his chest. Not anger. Something heavier. He remembered seeing empty seats around her cafeteria table. Group projects where teachers gently rearranged assignments without explaining why. Parents requesting room changes after orientation week. Harmony Integration Academy welcomed students from 12 worlds. Posters filled hallways. Unity, respect, belonging. Big words looked beautiful printed across walls. Real life felt harder sometimes. Daniel slowly sat down on the floor across from her. Not too close. Just enough. You know, he said quietly, when I started here 9 years ago, people forgot my name every day. Lyra glanced up slightly. You? Daniel smiled softly. Happens more than you think. She studied him carefully, like she was trying to decide whether adults told the truth. Most stopped trying around students her age. Daniel never did. People are weird sometimes, he said. They get nervous around things they do not understand. Lyra looked back toward the dark room behind her. I make people uncomfortable. Daniel followed her eyes. No, he said gently. People choose what makes them uncomfortable. The hallway fell quiet again. Air systems hummed softly overhead. Somewhere far outside station windows, Earth turned slowly below them, glowing blue against endless darkness. Daniel noticed something then. Resting beside Lyra sat pages covered in handwritten equations. Complex patterns. Energy mapping designs unlike anything he recognized. Not random drawings. Not homework. Something else. Something important. Lyra quietly slid the papers farther into shadow. Daniel noticed the movement immediately. Not because Lyra moved quickly, because she moved like someone used to hiding things before people could judge them. He looked toward the papers only briefly before looking away. Years of working inside schools taught him another lesson too. Trust disappeared when people felt watched. You do not have to hide your homework, Daniel said quietly. Lyra kept her eyes lowered. It is not homework. Okay. You are not going to ask? Daniel leaned back lightly against the wall beside him. You planning to blow up the station? For the first time since he sat down, Lyra blinked hard and looked directly at him. Not shocked. Confused. Daniel smiled softly. Guess not. A small silence followed. Different this time. Lighter somehow. Air systems hummed overhead. Somewhere far below the station, Earth glowed through distant observation windows. Blue oceans. White cloud systems. A world that looked peaceful from far away. Daniel slowly stood. His knees reminded him immediately that 56 years felt different than 36. Well, he said quietly, I still have 3 hallways to finish before midnight. Lyra said nothing. Daniel reached for his cleaning cart, then stopped. Room lights still work. Lyra hesitated. Yes. You choosing darkness? More silence. Then finally, people look less at me when it is dark. Daniel felt that heavier feeling again. The one that stayed with him long after hard conversations ended. He nodded slowly. Good night, Lyra. Good night. He pushed his cart slowly down the hallway, wheels rolling softly over polished floors. 10 feet away. 20 feet. 30. Then something stopped him. Daniel turned back. Room 2147 sat quietly under dim hallway light. Lyra still sat alone beside her door. Same position. Same silence. Same darkness. Like she belonged there. Daniel Brooks had worked inside Harmony Integration Academy long enough to recognize patterns people missed. Students who laughed too loudly because they felt invisible. Teachers who sounded strict because they felt overwhelmed. Kids who stopped raising their hands after enough people ignored them. Lyra Vane belonged to another pattern entirely. The ones who slowly disappeared while standing directly in front of everyone. The next morning, Harmony Integration Academy moved like usual. Floating transit shuttles arrived from nearby orbital sectors. Students crossed bright glass walkways carrying digital tablets and coffee drinks from station cafes. Teachers moved through hallways discussing schedules and research projects. Life continued normally. Mostly. Daniel noticed Lyra during breakfast, sitting alone near observation windows overlooking Earth. 2 empty seats beside her. Plenty of room. Nobody sat there. He noticed her again near engineering sciences, walking quietly with books held close. Students moved around her naturally. Too naturally. Like water flowing around a stone. Not cruel. Worse sometimes. Familiar. Invisible. Near noon, Daniel replaced lighting filters outside Science Wing B. Two students passed nearby talking quietly. My brother said her species caused power failures on Vega 7. Seriously? My mom said we should stay careful. Daniel kept working silently. Tools steady inside worn hands. The strange thing about fear, he learned years ago, was how quickly people borrowed it from each other. By evening, Daniel found himself standing once again outside room 2147, carrying a replacement light panel he did not actually need. Inside the dark hallway, something felt wrong. Not broken. Waiting. And behind the closed door of room 2147 sat a girl, hiding something bigger than loneliness. Daniel stood outside room 2147 longer than he planned to. The replacement light panel rested under his arm untouched. Through the narrow strip of reinforced glass beside the door, he could see movement. Not much, just enough to know Lyra was awake. He almost walked away, almost reminded himself that students deserve privacy and janitors fixed lights and floors and broken hinges. Not lives, but something kept bothering him. Those pages, those equations, the look on her face every time someone came near her. Daniel slowly checked the hallway lighting controls mounted beside her door. Everything worked perfectly. Sensors normal. Wiring stable. Power flow consistent. Nothing wrong except one simple thing. Someone had manually disabled the hallway light, setting outside room 2147 again. Daniel stared at the control panel quietly. Someone turned it off. Again. The hallway felt colder suddenly. Harmony Integration Academy advertised belonging across 12 worlds. Unity stood engraved across the central entrance in silver steel letters, nearly 6 feet tall. Unity looked impressive during school tours. Real life looked different sometimes. Daniel reactivated the hallway light. Soft gold illumination spilled across steel flooring and station walls. Clean. Warm. Human. For several seconds nothing happened. Then slowly room 2147 opened a few inches. Lyra stood there. Silver-gray skin catching faint light. Dark blue markings visible across one hand resting carefully against the door frame. You turned it back on, she said quietly. Daniel looked toward the light panel. Looks better. People turn it off. Daniel felt something heavy settle quietly inside him again. Who? Lyra hesitated. Too long. It does not matter. Daniel nodded once. Usually people said that when it mattered very much. You eat dinner? Daniel asked. Yes. You sure? Yes. Daniel looked at her carefully. Years cleaning schools taught him things paperwork never showed. Tired eyes. Quiet voices. Students carrying things adults never noticed. Okay, he said gently. Good night then. Good night. This time he walked away. 20 feet. 30 feet. 50 feet. Then he heard it. Soft metal movement behind him. Daniel turned slightly. Lyra stood halfway outside room 2147 looking toward the hallway light. Not him. The light. Like she had forgotten what it felt like to see it there. The next afternoon, Harmony Integration Academy held an engineering systems seminar for upper division students. Daniel replaced filters outside Science Hall C, while students filled classrooms nearby. Principal Helen Mercer walked through the corridor with Assistant Director Nathan Reed discussing station energy reports. Power fluctuations again. Nathan asked quietly. Minor, Helen answered. Engineering says it is manageable. Third time this month. I know. Daniel kept working silently. He noticed things because people stopped noticing him years ago. Minor power fluctuations. Emergency maintenance requests increasing. Climate systems recalibrating unexpectedly. Strange patterns. Small things. Easy to ignore. Near 3:30 in the afternoon, Daniel passed observation, Hall 7, and saw Lyra sitting alone again. Tablet open beside her. Handwritten equations covering digital screens now. Complex energy mapping designs. Mathematical structures folding across displays Daniel could barely understand. She worked quickly, focused, precise. Then suddenly her screen flickered. Power instability. Just for 1 second. But Lyra reacted instantly. Too instantly. Her eyes widened. Her hand moved fast across controls, correcting something before it fully happened. Daniel slowed his steps. Watched quietly. Lyra looked around immediately afterward. Nervous. Alert. Like someone hiding more than homework. Then for the first time since Daniel Brooks met her 3 days earlier, he realized something that made the hallway suddenly feel smaller. Lyra was not afraid something bad might happen. She was afraid she already knew it would. Daniel Brooks slept badly that night. Not because of station alarms. Not because of aging knees or long shifts or endless maintenance reports waiting tomorrow morning. He kept thinking about Observation Hall 7, about Lyra correcting something before the system instability fully happened, about the way fear crossed her face. Not surprise. Recognition. Harmony Integration Academy rotated quietly above Earth, while thousands slept peacefully inside reinforced station walls. Climate systems adjusted temperatures automatically. Energy grids balanced consumption patterns every 6 minutes. Everything looked stable, normal, controlled. Yet sometime around 4:15 in the morning, Daniel found himself sitting alone in his small maintenance office reviewing energy reports he normally ignored. Not because he understood them, because something felt wrong. Small fluctuations appeared repeatedly. Science wing, residential systems, climate balancing, observation sectors. Tiny failures corrected automatically before becoming visible. Almost invisible patterns. Almost. Daniel leaned back slowly in his chair. 9 years inside Harmony Integration Academy taught him one thing very clearly. Small problems became big ones when everyone assumed someone else would notice first. Morning arrived quietly. Bright artificial sunlight filled station corridors. Students moved through glass walkways carrying breakfast trays and digital assignments. Teachers prepared classrooms. Harmony Integration Academy looked exactly like it always looked. Daniel noticed Lyra before first learning cycle near Engineering Hall 4. Same quiet steps. Same books held close. Same empty space around her that students never seemed to notice creating. Today something felt different. Tired eyes. More tired than usual. Near midday, Daniel found himself replacing ceiling panels near Systems Research Lab B when Principal Helen Mercer stepped into the corridor speaking with 2 senior engineering instructors. "We cannot keep delaying diagnostics," one instructor said quietly. "The grid instability keeps spreading. Engineering teams are reviewing everything," Helen answered carefully. "No reason to create concern. Concern already exists." Daniel kept working silently above them, standing 8 feet up on maintenance support equipment. Invisible again. Useful sometimes. Dangerous sometimes. "You think external interference?" another instructor asked quietly. Helen Mercer hesitated. "No evidence yet." External interference. Daniel remembered handwritten equations. Energy mapping designs. Lyra reacting before failures happened. Something slowly connected inside his thoughts. Not answers. Pieces. That evening, station lighting dimmed briefly across residential sector 3. Only 2 seconds. Students barely noticed. Daniel did. 10 minutes later, he stood outside room 2147 again, carrying fresh hallway lighting components he absolutely did not need. Soft gold light still glowed. Outside Lyra's door. He kept it that way now. Every evening. Every night. Simple things mattered sometimes. Room 2147 opened before he knocked. Lyra stood there holding her tablet tightly. "You knew I was here?" Daniel asked quietly. "Your footsteps," she answered softly. "You walk slower when you are worried." Daniel almost smiled. Smart kid. "No." Silence settled briefly. Then Lyra looked down. "You should not keep fixing the light." Daniel blinked slowly. "Why?" "People will notice." "Good." "No." Her voice came quieter now. Smaller somehow. "Things are getting worse." Daniel watched her carefully. "What things?" Lyra hesitated. Air systems hummed softly overhead. Distant station sounds drifted quietly through residential corridors. Finally, she lifted the tablet slowly toward him. Energy models covered the screen. Grid maps. System patterns. Failure projections. Numbers Daniel could not understand. One thing he understood immediately. Every projection ended exactly the same way. Darkness. Daniel stared quietly at the tablet without pretending to understand what he was looking at. Lines curved across the screen in layered patterns that moved like flowing rivers of light. Grid pathways. System timing calculations. Energy redistribution models. Thousands of numbers connected into something far beyond ordinary school assignments. Daniel lifted his eyes slowly toward Lyra. "You made this?" Lyra hesitated. "Yes." "By yourself?" "Mostly." Daniel looked back toward the projections again. Every path eventually collapsed into the same outcome. System failure. Energy loss. Darkness. The hallway felt quieter somehow. Bigger. Colder. "You showed engineering this?" Daniel asked carefully. Lyra immediately lowered the tablet slightly. "No." "Principal Mercer?" "No." "Teachers?" "No." Daniel looked at her for several silent seconds. "Why?" Lyra stared toward the softly glowing hallway light outside her room, the one he kept fixing every evening. Because they already decided what I am. Daniel felt something heavy settle quietly inside him again. The kind that stayed longer every day now. Kid, he said gently, people deciding things does not make them right. It does. Here. Her answer came quickly. Too quickly. Like she had practiced believing it. Somewhere farther down residential sector 3, station lighting dimmed briefly again. Less than 1 second. Then normal. Daniel noticed. Lyra noticed faster. Her eyes moved instantly toward the ceiling. Listening. Calculating. Watching things nobody else watched. Daniel slowly leaned against the wall beside room 2147. Tell me something, he said quietly. Those equations. Those energy maps. Why are you doing all this? Silence. Long enough that he thought she might not answer. Then finally. Because nobody else sees it. Air systems hummed softly overhead. The station moved quietly through endless darkness beyond reinforced walls. Thousands of people sleeping peacefully, learning peacefully, living peacefully, completely unaware. Lyra slowly placed the tablet screen flat against her chest. The fluctuation started 34 days ago, she said quietly. Very small, hidden inside balancing systems. Daniel listened. I thought engineering would catch it. They did not. Teachers? No. So you kept watching. Lyra nodded once. My world studies energy movement differently. Her voice lowered further. Pattern prediction starts when we are very young. Daniel remembered whispers from students. Dangerous species. Strange species. Different species. He almost laughed quietly thinking about it now. Different. They feared different so easily. You think something is coming? Daniel asked. Lyra looked directly at him. For the first time since meeting her 4 days ago, fear disappeared completely from her face. That somehow scared him more. Something is already here, she said softly. The hallway fell silent. Not ordinary silence. Heavy silence. The kind that made people notice their breathing. Daniel slowly folded his arms. What do you need? Lyra blinked once. What? You heard me. You believe me? Daniel looked toward the hallway light glowing softly above room 2147. Simple thing. Small thing. One light somebody kept turning off. One light somebody kept turning back on. Every night. Kid, he said quietly. I think people miss important things all the time. Lyra stood. Completely still. Daniel noticed something then. Not fear. Not loneliness. Something stranger. Relief. Very small. Almost invisible. But there. Outside room 2147. Under one hallway light. For the first time in a very long time. Lyra Vane no longer looked like someone carrying everything alone. The next morning Harmony Integration Academy felt normal in the way places sometimes do right before everything changes. Students moved through glass corridors carrying breakfast trays and unfinished assignments. Teachers reviewed lesson plans. Cleaning crews moved quietly between learning sectors. Outside reinforced station windows, earth drifted below them in silent blue light. Daniel Brooks spent most of the morning replacing climate filters near residential sector 2. Simple work. Familiar work. Yet his eyes kept drifting toward system panels mounted along station walls. Tiny fluctuations continued appearing. Small enough most people ignored them. Not Daniel anymore. Around 11:23 station time, emergency maintenance alerts quietly appeared across internal staff systems. Climate balancing instability. Energy distribution recalibration. Non-critical. Daniel noticed something immediately. Non-critical warnings kept multiplying. By lunch period, 6 separate departments reported irregularities. Engineering teams moved faster through hallways now. Security staff checked systems twice instead of once. Nobody looked panicked. Not yet. Near 1:15, Daniel found Principal Helen Mercer standing outside Systems Research Hall, speaking sharply with station engineers. We already ran diagnostics twice, one engineer said quietly. We cannot find the source. Run them again, Helen answered. We are losing stability across too many sectors. Daniel kept walking. Invisible again. Listening again. Useful again. Near 3 in the afternoon, station lighting flickered harder this time. 3 full seconds. Long enough for conversations to stop. Long enough for students to notice. Hallways fell quiet. Then systems stabilized again. Nervous laughter returned. Conversations restarted. Life moved forward. Except Daniel noticed something else. Lyra stood completely still near. Observation Hall 7. Not surprised. Not confused. Watching ceiling lights like someone counting time running out. Daniel crossed the hallway toward her. Kid. Lyra turned immediately. It is accelerating, she said quietly. No greeting. No hesitation. Daniel felt tension settle quietly across his shoulders. Show me. 20 minutes later, Daniel stood inside an unused maintenance room beside residential sector 3, staring at energy projections spreading across Lyra's tablet screen. Failure chains moved across station systems in layered patterns. Energy redistribution collapse. Backup instability. Climate interruption probability. Daniel understood almost none of it. One thing he understood clearly. The timeline projection blinking near the bottom corner. Estimated system cascade event. Less than 18 hours. Daniel stared quietly. You are sure? 93% probability. Engineering missed this? They are looking at failures. Lyra lowered the tablet slightly. I was looking for patterns. Silence settled heavily around the small maintenance room. Ventilation systems hummed overhead. Somewhere outside, students laughed, moving toward afternoon learning cycles completely unaware. Daniel leaned slowly against the wall. We tell Principal Mercer. Lyra immediately shook her head. She will not listen. Maybe. She never does. Daniel looked carefully at her. Kid. His voice stayed quiet. Steady. People surprise you sometimes. Lyra lowered her eyes. Not usually. Daniel almost answered, then stopped, because he remembered empty cafeteria tables, dark hallway lights, people choosing distance before understanding. Maybe she had reasons. Daniel slowly reached toward the maintenance terminal beside the wall. Staff communication systems glowed softly, waiting for input. What are you doing? Lyra asked quietly. Daniel looked toward the screen, toward warning reports nobody fully understood yet, toward a station slowly moving toward darkness, then back toward the 13-year-old girl nobody listened to until now, giving someone smart a chance to be heard. Principal Helen Mercer almost canceled the meeting twice. Daniel Brooks could see it in the way she stood near the system's conference room entrance with crossed arms and tired eyes. Engineering supervisors filled half the room already. Energy specialists reviewed station reports across floating displays. Assistant Director Nathan Reed stood beside the central console, quietly reading failure summaries that somehow looked worse than they had 3 hours earlier. Daniel stood near the back wall beside Lyra. Invisible again. Familiar place. Safe place. Principal Mercer finally looked toward them. Her expression changed slightly when she saw Lyra standing there. Not anger. Not welcome either. Something colder. Assumption. Daniel, Helen said carefully. You said this could not wait. Daniel nodded once. It cannot. Helen looked toward Lyra. This involves a student. Daniel felt tension settle quietly across the room. Lyra lowered her eyes immediately, like she already knew how this part usually went. She found something, Daniel said calmly. Something important. One engineering supervisor adjusted his display screen. We already have engineering teams reviewing instability patterns. Lyra stayed silent. Nathan Reed looked toward her more carefully. What kind of patterns? Silence settled briefly. Daniel glanced toward Lyra. Softly. Patiently. Same way he waited outside room 2147. Same way he waited when people needed time to believe they belonged somewhere. Lyra slowly stepped forward. Her tablet activated quietly. Energy models spread across the conference displays. Layered projections filled the room. Grid movement pathways. System cascade probabilities. Failure timing structures. Nobody spoke. One engineer moved closer. Then another. Principal Mercer folded her arms tighter. What exactly are we looking at? Lyra swallowed quietly. Station energy balancing feedback loops. One supervisor frowned. We already checked balancing systems. Not like this, Lyra answered softly. Nathan Reed stepped closer toward the display projections. Wait. His voice changed slightly. Sharper now. Focused. Expand Sector 8 redistribution. Lyra adjusted the model immediately. Nathan stared silently. Another engineer moved beside him. Then another. Quiet. Spread slowly through the room. Not uncomfortable silence. Recognition silence. Daniel recognized it immediately. The kind that happened when people realized they missed something important standing directly in front of them. These instability loops are feeding each other, Nathan said quietly. They are amplifying failure patterns. That is impossible, one supervisor said immediately. Lyra stayed perfectly calm. Not impossible. She adjusted another projection. Delayed. The room fell quiet. Daniel watched Principal Mercer carefully. Watched certainty slowly disappear from her expression. watched assumption quietly lose ground to evidence. Nathan Reed stepped closer toward Lyra now. Not past her. Toward her. How long have you been tracking this? He asked quietly. 38 days. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. One engineering supervisor slowly lowered his display screen. Another quietly sat down without realizing he had done it. Principal Mercer looked toward Lyra differently now. Not fear. Not distance. Something heavier. Regret maybe. Then suddenly station lights flickered hard. Once. Twice. 3 times. Conference systems dimmed sharply. Emergency lighting activated instantly across the room. Warning tones echoed through nearby corridors. Staff communication systems lit red. Daniel felt it immediately, the station itself changing around them. Nathan Reed looked toward Central Systems reports appearing rapidly across conference displays. Climate controls failing. Power redistribution collapsing. Emergency reserves activating. His voice came quieter now, almost stunned. It started. Slowly, every eye inside the conference room turned toward the 13-year-old girl nobody listened to until the human janitor decided someone should. Nobody inside the conference room moved for nearly 3 full seconds. Emergency lighting washed the walls in soft red pulses, while warning notifications climbed rapidly across floating displays. Climate systems entering reserve mode. Internal energy balancing failure. Backup reserves under pressure. The station felt different now. Not broken. Strained. Principal Helen Mercer looked toward Nathan Reed. Nathan Reed looked toward engineering supervisors. Engineering supervisors looked toward Lyra Vane. For the first time since arriving at Harmony Integration Academy, nobody looked away from her. Can we stop it? Principal Mercer asked quietly. Nathan Reed answered first. Maybe. Then he looked toward Lyra. Can we? Silence settled across the room again. Lyra stood completely still beneath emergency lighting reflections. No shaking hands. No lowered eyes. No quiet attempt to disappear. Daniel Brooks noticed it immediately. The girl who sat beside darkness because people feared looking at her now stood in front of people who finally learned how to listen. Lyra stepped toward the Central Systems display. Her silver-gray fingers moved carefully across projection controls. Energy pathways expanded across the conference room. Layered balancing systems. Redistribution loops. Failing stabilization patterns. The station is trying to correct itself too aggressively, Lyra said quietly. Every correction creates another imbalance. One engineering supervisor moved closer. How do we stop it? Lyra adjusted another model. Stop forcing balance. Principal Mercer frowned slightly. Explain. Lyra pointed toward energy pathways moving across floating displays. Your systems keep fighting instability. She lifted her eyes slowly. They should redirect around it. Nobody interrupted. Nobody questioned her. The room that once decided who belonged had finally become quiet enough to learn something. Nathan Reed immediately moved towards Central Operations Controls. Engineers spread across systems terminals. New commands moved through station networks. Climate balancing shifted. Energy redistribution pathways changed. Daniel stood quietly near the back wall, watching people work faster now. Not because they suddenly became smarter. Because someone finally gave the right person a chance to speak. 10 minutes later, station lighting stabilized. 15 minutes later, reserve systems normalized. 21 minutes later, warning notifications slowly disappeared one by one. The final alert vanished quietly from the conference display. Nobody spoke at first. Then one engineering supervisor slowly leaned back in his chair. Another quietly laughed once. Not because anything felt funny. Relief sometimes sounded strange. Principal Helen Mercer stood completely still, looking toward Lyra. Looking toward the student she never truly saw. 38 days, Helen said quietly. Lyra nodded once. Helen lowered her eyes briefly. I should have listened sooner. Daniel noticed something important then. Lyra did not answer immediately, because some apologies mattered more when actions changed afterward. 3 days later, Harmony Integration Academy felt different. Not because station systems worked perfectly again, because people did. Cafeteria tables changed. Hallway conversations changed. Teachers asked different questions. Students sat closer. Fear moved away slowly. Kindness usually did not arrive all at once. One evening, Daniel pushed his cleaning cart quietly through residential sector 3. Same hallway. Same polished floors. Same station drifting peacefully above Earth. But one thing looked different. Room 2147 glowed softly beneath warm hallway light. Daniel smiled quietly to himself and kept walking. Mr. Brooks. He turned. Lyra stood outside her doorway. Yes, kid. She looked toward the hallway light for a moment, then back toward him. Thank you for leaving it on. Daniel looked toward the warm gold light stretching quietly across steel floors. Simple thing. Small thing. Sometimes that was where everything changed.